So I will call to order the meeting of the Central Valley Flood Protection Board of Friday, August 22nd, 2025. Somebody's laughing because the last time I announced the wrong date. So I got it. So our first order of business is to establish attendance and quorum. So I will call on our board assistant, Mr. Knapp, to call the roll.
Member Andrews.
Present.
Member Bosler.
Here.
Member Countryman.
Present.
Member Griego.
Here.
Secretary Johnson.
I'm here. Good morning.
Vice President Villines is expected soon. President Dolan.
I'm here. Did you call it Mr. Countryman? Yes. I did not hear that. Sorry. Okay. That confirms that we have a quorum. There are 7 board members. 5 are here present. 1 is going to be virtual, and 1 is going to be coming any minute through that door. So there you are. Wanted to say, however, that joining me up here to my left is our Executive Officer, Chris Leaf, our multitasker for everything that we need, Jonah Knapp. Our board attorney, Mr. Dewitt, has arrived. Good morning. Our chief engineer, Michael Wright, to my left at the end of that, and the deputy executive officer, Andrea Buckley. We're pleased to have all of them. Our first item is for the executive officer, Chris Leaf, to give us any announcements or introductions we may have. Mr. Leaf.
Thank you, President Dolan. I have several introductions this morning. First, we welcome Cicia Herr, a student assistant who will be assisting with database records updates. Cicia is currently attending Sac State, where she is pursuing a bachelor's degree in health science.
Is she here? You are required to stand up.
She did. She waved.
Oh, I'm sorry. I missed that. Hello, welcome. I'm not used to folks over here, so thanks.
Next, we welcome Danielle Johnson, also a student assistant, who will also be assisting with database records updates. She brings extensive experience from the private sector.
Hello, welcome.
Most recently leading a team of 10 at SFP Development. She also previously worked in a medical office where she assisted with records management. Danielle is currently attending Sac State and pursuing a degree in business administration. Welcome. We are also very pleased to welcome Saida Ara, a water resources engineer, joining our permitting section. Saida has 17 years of experience in civil and water resources engineering, most recently with DWR. She has expertise in flood risk reduction, levee stability design, and project permitting and compliance within the State Plan of Flood Control System. Saida earned a master's degree in water resources engineering from California State University, Sacramento, and is a licensed professional engineer in California. With Saida's hire, our operations branch is now fully staffed. We are very excited to have her join our team, and we look forward to her contributions in supporting our mission to protect communities and critical infrastructure from flood risk. Welcome, Saida.
Welcome. From what you've said and talking with you this morning, you are definitely, we hit the jackpot with all of you, so welcome. More?
Yes. Lastly.
More good news.
Yes. We welcome Bonnie Irving as a senior environmental scientist in the environmental services section and the board's tribal liaison. And she comes with an impressive regulatory background with experience planning and constructing multiple tidal wetland habitat restoration projects in the Delta, and most recently evaluating the current and future status of species under the Endangered Species Act as an Everglades program supervisor with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. As part of that effort, she led a government-to-government consultation between the Miccosukee tribe of Indians of Florida and the director of the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service.
Wow.
Welcome, Bonnie.
Welcome. You bring some expertise that we've been looking for, so we're very happy to do that. Welcome to you all. Thank you all for standing. We like to see you. Okay. So any announcements beyond?
That's
beyond
all I
that?
have. Thank you.
Okay. Introductions and announcements. Thank you. I'm going to briefly review our agenda just to be sure that we see if there's any consideration of change. This is just an overview. When we come to each item, there's more of an explanation before we move on. Item 4, there are 2 sets of minutes for approval. Item 5 is consent items that are taken as one vote, but there can be questions asked. If there's real concerns, they move on, and there are 2 in the consent item form. Item 6 is a time for asking for public comment for items that are matters related to our work but are not on today's agenda. We have public comment at every agenda item. We do limit comments to 3 minutes. I think if you've been here before, you know I do the best I can on that, as you do as well. For this and items on the agenda for which you speak, I prefer, but I don't require a card asking to speak. I call on those in the audience and those online in that order. Item 7 is a legislative update. It's a written submittal prepared by our executive officer. It is a public document, but we don't necessarily read it or pursue it, but sometimes we have questions. Item 8 is a presentation from the Army Corps of Engineers, and I didn't write what it is, so we'll get to it at item 8. Item 9 are board items, and there are 2, and they are both informational. They're presentations that we look forward to, frankly, and no action is expected. Item 10 is a monthly written report that DWR provides to us on their activities for that prior month. We don't read it. We just announce it to see if there's any discussion or question on an item. Item 11 is getting toward the end of the meeting. It's where we notice that our various staff divisions and branches prepare and provide us with monthly activity reports. Sometimes there's a discussion, sometimes not. Item 12 is for board members to comment on our activities and committees, if we so wish to do. Item 13, we're getting to the end. We announce our next meetings and locations, hoping that we actually have one. We've been moving our locations a lot. Item 14 is a closed session, and there will be one today. We expect it to be brief, and we are certain that there will be no action after that. So after that, all items would be handled, and it would be an adjournment. There are no comments from the board or staff. We'll proceed with the agenda then. Thank you. Our Vice President, Board Member Mike Valines has arrived. Thank you very much. I actually knew that because this showed up. Thank you. I come from 200 miles, so it's good to have coffee here. We're at item 4. We have minutes. Our Board Secretary, Brian Johnson, will handle this. Good morning.
Good morning, President Dolan, members of the board. We have the June 27 and July 18 minutes today. I've reviewed them. I believe they're all in order, and I move that they be approved.
All right. There's a motion to approve both of those with one motion.
I'll second that.
Member Bosler has seconds that. Any comments, questions from board members for those 2 sets of minutes? Nice job. One of them was challenging. Nice job. Anybody in the audience want to talk about our minutes? Anybody online want to talk about our minutes? Okay. Please call the roll for a vote.
Member Andrews?
Aye.
Member Bosler?
Aye.
Member Countryman?
Yes.
Member Griego?
Yes.
Secretary Johnson?
Aye.
Vice President Valines? Aye. President Dolan?
Yes. That motion passes unanimously. The minutes are approved. Thank you again. Item number 5, consent items. There are 2. There are 3. Thank you. Did that right. I can see that. It's ABC. 5A is to approve permit number 19755, California Department of Transportation, State Route 70, is it Binney or Biney Junction? I'm going to ask Mary Jane because she knows too. Binney Junction, Yuba County. Item 5B, approved permit number 19858, sewer main issues, connections there at Morrison Creek, City of Sacramento, Department of Utilities. Item 5C is to approve resolution 2025-03 to execute a purchase and sale agreement for a public roadway easement and a canal and access easement for the Sacramento and San Joaquin Drainage District parcel number 119 to convey to Sutter County for the Tisdale Bridge over West Side Canal Replacement Project. Say that twice. Does anyone on the board have a comment or a question or wish to remove one of these items for individual consideration? I don't see that. Anyone in the audience want information or ask a question? You just want us to vote, right? Okay. Mr. Countryman, did you have a question? Okay, almost there. Anyone online with their hand up on this? Okay. Then is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
I move to approve the consent items.
Right, we have a motion by Member Countryman. Is there a second? I'll second. Second by Member Griego. I already asked if anybody had a comment. I didn't get any hands up or nods, so please call the roll.
Member Andrews,
Aye.
Member Bosler,
Aye.
Member Countryman,
Aye.
Member Griego,
Yes.
Secretary Johnson,
Aye.
Vice President Valines, President Dolan.
Yes, that motion carries unanimously. The consent agenda is approved. We are now at item 6. Okay, you can smile. Oh, that was a thank you. All right. You're welcome. For the board. Item 6 is public comment. As I had said before, these are for items, someone has a comment to provide for us, something that is actually within our jurisdiction, but it's not on today's agenda. Do we have any requests?
No cards.
Okay, no cards, no requests. Anyone in the audience who has a public comment for us? Anyone online? Okay, well, that's a first of several in a row. It was like, what? Okay, take care of that. We're moving right along. Item 7 is a legislative update. We all read it. I read it more in depth. We had some busy things going on the last few meetings, but thank you very much for putting that together. It was very cogent. I could read it and understand it, even if I didn't like everything that you were telling us is happening. And board members have any comments or questions on the legislative update of our executive officer? Member Bosler.
Yeah, no, I thought it was a really good report, and there's so much going on. There's so much change, especially at the federal level. I think everyone's still really trying to get a handle on the impacts of H.R. 1. But something that I don't think has been talked about is some of the executive branch changes, especially around FEMA, and what a big deal that is to all states, and especially here in California, and especially this community, the flood community. Because if there's big shifts with how the federal government shows up in the wake of emergencies, and it's not just the big ones, it's all of the smaller ones as well, that will be a big, big shift in costs to the state and local governments that right now we are not equipped to support. And so I will be watching that personally very closely, what happens at the federal level with the changing posture about how FEMA is going to show up for states and local governments in emergencies, because I think it's really important. This is something that I learned when I was in the governor's office for many years. There are a lot of emergencies that are not on the news. Like, there are a lot of storm damage, things that happen, and it works like really well and like clockwork right now. There are disaster declarations declared by the governor. Those paperworks are submitted to FEMA. The funding comes into the state to reimburse fixing roads, doing routine maintenance on different things. We talk a lot about what they do for levee repairs. So it's just a really big deal. And, given this current state of the fiscal situation of California, which is really tough and getting much more tough with the full impacts of HR 1 on the state's Medicaid program, this FEMA change would just compound that significantly. Because one of the primary things government does is show up to fix things in emergencies. And so that is just something I'm going to be watching closely. And I thank Chris for cutting through all of the complexity that's happening right now and getting some really good summaries about that. And I want to continue to work on that with people in the community as well.
Through the chair.
Member Grego,
Sorry.
then Countryman.
I agree with what's been said. For me, I needed some clarity on this particular FEMA issue because there's a lot of different functions that FEMA does. And is it just in regards to disaster response that they're getting or cutting back FEMA, or is that on all programs that FEMA does?
Just in case everyone does not know, this is the Federal Emergency Management Agency that responds when people's lives, number one, are in danger, important infrastructure are being damaged, homes and businesses. So those services appear to be withdrawn for California if something happens.
Let me just be clear. Usually in a disaster, FEMA actually covers 90% of the expenses for the recovery. 10% is for the state and local governments, and that share is shared 75-25. 75% state, 25% local. So that's kind of the normal way. So when we have a big emergency and it's billions of dollars, like what's happened in LA earlier this year, a large, like the vast majority of the money is coming from the federal government to clear the debris, to start the recovery process. And so that's just an important kind of grounding.
Every state, every disaster. Yeah, this is something it's not new. It's historically occurred across the United States. Maybe not now. Member Countryman?
I believe President Trump has stated he wants to eliminate FEMA from federal government. But I just want to make clear, the things that we're seeing now are not like California being punished. This is something that's going across the entire country. Is that right? So it remains to be seen how politically popular that's going to be. We'll see.
Through the chair, I had one more question.
Member Grego?
And so in this summary legislative update, there was also information about the BRIC funding and that it's been held up in court. And so those projects, and I know that I have a couple in my area that were supposed to be funded under that program, and that it's because it's being held up in court, there's been a stay in that. And it's good to know because the jurisdictions are trying to figure out how they're going to fund these projects. And I'm curious that if the judge finds that it was not legal for them to do that, will they be reimbursed, these projects specifically? Do you know anything about that?
It's hard to know what the court will do. In the meantime, that funding can't be allocated to something else, so it's kind of
That's good to know.
held back until there's a final disposition of the case.
Okay, well, it's good to know, and I hope we can keep on track with that. And Mike, did you say you had an answer to my question?
Maybe a comment, but it'll put some light on it. And thank you for asking through the chair. Keely, thanks for bringing up what you did. Thanks for the report, Chris. But I was going to say, FEMA dollars right now in the healthcare space are actually being clawed back, which I've never seen. Like I was going to ask you about it after the meeting, Keely. So it's one thing to hold money. It's another to claw back, and they're actually doing that. So I anticipate it's like that across the board for everything. I think you can't count on anything at this point, and we just have to be diligent. But like I said, this has just started happening the last few weeks where letters are going out from the state telling in the healthcare industry that at hospitals that money's going to be clawed back from COVID money that's been spent years ago. So I don't know how that happens, and I don't know all the legal stuff. I just know it's happening. So that's kind of an indicator for how it's going to be across the board, I think.
So isn't the NFIP under FEMA as well? And how
Yes.
does that happen? Do we just quit paying our premiums? I mean, California pays more than
The
anybody
NFIP
else.
is it's
National flood.
insurance, national insurance.
Yeah,
for flood.
National Flood Insurance
Yes, many
Program.
people do pay. I think
Sorry.
when Mr. Lee said, well, we're not sure what's going to happen, is the mantra now. It's like, what's next? This is scary.
Yeah, I think that we don't know what's going to happen right now. I think I've heard things like, yeah, I mean, eliminate seems very drastic. I don't know how they do that. They can't unwind that quickly. Like there's lots of statute and everything. But phasing out, I think, has been talked about for a long time. This fundamental sharing of costs around emergencies. There are definitely a lot of people, even before President Trump was elected, that have like wanted to put more responsibility to state and local governments, and so this is not necessarily in some cases a new thing. This pushing the responsibility to more locals, but I think there's just a lot of uncertainty. There is an advisory committee that's been set up that's taking testimony. I actually reached out to the former OES director just yesterday, and he said he had recently testified as an expert. He's somebody that worked in FEMA and in OES here in California. And so I think there's a lot of process happening right now, so it's not really clear on the timing. I think it's just really important for this community, the flood protection community, to be really closely monitoring this and make sure that their voice is weighing in, because this is a really big deal for California and local governments, because we know we don't have enough resources to do the upgrades that we need to do, and this is like the stuff that we just need to fix so it's working. And so if we lose that source of money, it's just a big deal that we'll have to figure out.
It's a big deal, for sure. Any other board members on this? The biggest discussion on this possible. Anyone in the audience want to talk about
I have something.
who read it? Oh, yes. Okay. Anyone online? Mr. Leaf, you have more to give us?
Yeah, after press time, so to speak, I did learn that the Review Council is meeting on August 28th, so next week in Oklahoma City. And as mentioned in the report, the current expectation is that the report will be out next spring with recommendations.
Well, we'll just hope for a calm winter and no destruction. Wow. It'd be better if they had that down there in Louisiana where Katrina was. That's the way it goes. Okay. We'll move on then. Item number 8, United States Army Corps of Engineers. Who's coming forward? There you are. Jeremiah Peak of our Board Staff Flood System Improvement Branch will introduce this item. It's a presentation of levee inspection for the American River Flood Control District. Good morning, Mr. Peak.
Good morning. President Dolan and members of the board. My name is Jeremiah Peak, and I work in the Deferred Encroachment Compliance section here at the board. Today, I'm here to present on the American River Flood Control District, Dry Creek, Natomas East Main Drainage Canal, and Arcade Creek Levee System. With me is Emily Green from the Army Corps Operations Division, here to co-present some of the upcoming slides with me. The General Manager, Tim Kerr, is also here with us today. Thank you for having me.
You didn't stand up, but you waved your hand. It's okay. There you are. Good morning.
Here's a vicinity map of the American River Flood Control District, Dry Creek, Natomas East Main Drainage Canal, Arcade Creek Levee System. So this system is in North Sacramento, and it helps protect the residents of North Point, Roble, Del Paso Heights, Strawberry Manor, and Hagenwood communities in Sacramento from flooding from Magpie Creek, Natomas East Main Drainage Canal, aka Steelhead Creek, Arcade Creek, and Dry Creek. That concludes my intro of the system, so I'll pass the mic over to Emily, and she'll pick it up from here.
Thank you.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Jeremiah. Good morning.
Good morning.
President Dolan, members of the board. Again, my name is Emily Green. I'm with the Army Corps of Engineers, and I'm happy to be back to share the results of our most recent inspection. All right, so this system is part of the Sacramento River Flood Control Project. It's made up of 4 segments surrounding each creek, as explained by Jeremiah, and it also includes a non-levied reach of channel, as shown by that blue dashed line at the north end of that system. The system reduces flood risk to the community of North Sacramento. Next slide, please. All right, so this levee system includes more features than just a levee embankment. It has flood walls, closure structures, relief wells, and reaches of non-levied channel. Therefore, the report card extends over 2 slides capturing all of the ratings of the unique project features. So we've got this slide shows half of them, and then there's a second one as well. So the highest rating for any item was minimally acceptable, and that's denoted by the M on the report card. No overall item ratings were rated unacceptable. So therefore, based on the results of this inspection, the system remains active in our PL 8499 rehabilitation program. I do want to point out that there are items rated M on this page with an asterisk. And what that asterisk is trying to communicate is individual observations within that category have been rated unacceptable, but they're rolled up into an overall item rating of minimally acceptable, considering the item's risk on the system. Next slide. All right, so now I'll show a few representative photos from the report. As I mentioned, there were no overall item ratings of unacceptable, but there were some conditions that we observed that will require some attention from the sponsors at LMA to address a concern. So starting with photo number 1, we're looking at erosion rills from surface runoff located on the landside slope, measuring up to 9 inches deep and 20 feet long. Photo number 2, we're looking at a utility pole that sits on the lower waterside slope on the Natomas East levee. The pole appeared unstable to our inspectors. There were anchors attached to the pole to help with stability. No permit was found for this pole. It appeared to be an unauthorized encroachment. Photo 3, we're looking at a flood wall that sits on the Arcade Creek North levee. The wall extends about 3/4 of a mile. It ranges from 2 to 6 feet in height. Overall, the wall was observed to be in good condition. However, there were some areas that may require attention, such as this location where the joint material appeared to be deteriorating between the 2 concrete panels of the flood wall and may allow water to pass through during a high water event. Lastly, photo 4, this is showing a slope failure, but it's not on the levee embankment. It's on a drainage canal that's located adjacent to the North Arcade Creek levee. The drainage canal is used to drain water from relief wells, project relief wells, where the water is then diverted to a local pump station and then pumped into Arcade Creek. The slope failure was measured about 14 by 10 feet and 10 inches deep. And there's an inspector there in the photo that helps provide scale. All right, so before I pause for questions, I just do want to take a second to acknowledge American River Flood Control District. During our field inspection, there were observations that we observed that would have contributed to an unacceptable item rating and impact eligibility. But in working with the district, Tim Kerr and his team, they were able to address the highest risk items prior to us finalizing the report, which enables them to stay active in the PL 8499 rehab program based on the inspection results alone. So we really appreciate the efforts and responsiveness of their team in addressing those concerns. So Jeremiah has some more slides, but I will pause to take any questions.
Yes. Yep, thank you for the pause. Board members have any questions or input on this? Looking here, looking there. Audience, left, center. Don't have anybody on the right, okay. I have a question just so I can understand slide 4.
Sure.
When you said a slip, is that broad activity or lack of activity across the front of that? That just looks like dirt
Yeah,
right now?
yeah, kind of the
So it's a
darker
vertical-
dirt-looking area.
It's a vertical
Yeah.
cliff.
It's a pretty steep slope, yeah.
Cliff.
Yeah, and I believe this area actually has reoccurring issues of this nature on that drainage ditch due to the steep slopes.
Yeah, anything that's vertical would be. Is there someone here from American River Flood Control District? Oh, of course. Is he allowed now, or do we need to? You're allowed, you're coming up.
Hello, President Dolan, members of the board. My name is Tim Kerr. I'm the general manager at the American River Flood Control District, and thank you for the opportunity to be here today. I really appreciate working with you and your team and the team at the Army Corps of Engineers. We've got a great partnership that's been really successful addressing these items in a kind of clear and concise manner. On the specific item you're asking questions about, it's a drainage ditch that's adjacent to our levee. It's actually outside the levee prism. So that feature is maintained by the city of Sacramento. They've had some problems there of sloughing of the grass, and I think it's just because the design of the ditch, the slope is really steep there. So
Yeah.
I think there's going to be an ongoing issue with that one.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, sure. I'll be here to answer any more questions.
Don't
if you
go
need.
too far.
Okay.
There's several pages here. Okay, I think we're back to you, Ms. Green.
That concludes my part of the presentation, so I believe Jeremiah will take over from here.
Oh, Mr. Peak goes over the report
Thank you.
cards. Okay.
So I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but for the previous slide, the images 1 and 3 were also addressed earlier this week. So thank you. Thank you. Yeah, next slide. Okay, so going into the details of the Army Corps report card, we have the areas that have improved since the last inspection in 2010, and then this inspection from 2023, highlighted in green there. So that's the operations and maintenance manuals that have improved. As Emily said, the system is currently active in the PL 8499 program, both through inspection. As you can see, there's no U ratings for the system, and also because they have an approved LOI that was approved in May of this year. So the LOI is letter of intent. Let's see. Next slide. So those are the O&M manuals, and then next slide again. This segment here does not have any improvements shown on Magpie Creek, and that's because in the inspection in 2010, there were this levee segment wasn't inspected. That's because this segment is the majority of it is a channel and not a levee, and so that's why we don't have anything to compare the system to. Next slide.
Okay.
I have here a summary of the inspection items that are on the previous report card. So there's 180 unacceptable but not negatively impacting performance observations on this levee. At the bottom, highlighted in red, next slide. Yeah, these ones are the rated items for the channels and flood walls. So that's Arcade Creek right bank is the segment with a flood wall, and Dry Creek left bank and Magpie Creek levee segments have the flood damage reduction channel. If you take a look at the core slides on the next slide, that's this flood wall right here. Next slide. And next slide again. This section right up at the top is where the majority of the unacceptable observations are in this category, levy items affecting PL 8499 eligibility. These would be affecting eligibility if they were unacceptable with that negative impact on performance. But they're just rated unacceptable. And then on the next slide, you see these sections here. These are the encroachments, and again, it's where the majority of the items were located, and I have a photo of each of them for each segment. The first example photo, number 1, is of a 8-inch PVC drain pipe going through the levee. The 30% of the unacceptable observations on the levee were pipes, and I have 2 photos of the pipes shown here. This one is just a drainage pipe going through the levee, and then as we talked about earlier, the district went out and addressed a lot of the negative impact on performance ratings. So this one here is shown filled with concrete as a result of the work that the district did after the initial inspection. And it was plugged with concrete in August of last year. Photo number 2 is of a drainage ditch. This ditch is 1 foot deep, 4 feet wide, and 10 feet from the levee, and it's about 1,500 feet long. We're working with the Corps to find out if it has the proper documentation. Currently, we're unaware of proper documentation for this, which is why it was rated as unacceptable. The next photo, photo number 3, this is of 4 48-inch pipes that belong to a City of Sacramento pumping station. These pipes are missing a video inspection, and so we are coordinating with the city to obtain those video inspections for these pipes and then the pipes in general going forward. Photo number 4 is of an encampment, and it was rated as unacceptable because it's possibly an impediment to maintaining the levee.
You think?
There are many encampments on Arcade Creek and Nemdic, and things have been particularly bad, it's my understanding, since 2017. However, overall, the system does not have any unacceptable with that negative impact on performance ratings, and so thank you to the district for doing a great job and taking care of business. And that is the end of my presentation. So thank you very much, and if you have any questions, feel free to ask Emily, Tim, or myself.
Thank you both for that presentation. When these inspections became more regular and had presentations, it's very helpful. And thank you for pointing out what we do know. These inspections are a point in time, and levee maintenance, it's not a point in time, it's continuous. And in some cases, there can be work that fixes something in January, and then it reoccurs for a variety of reasons in October. So thank you for saying some of the ones were done. What can be done about the last photo, number 4, is something everyone is concerned about.
Yes.
For sure. Yep. Thanks. Board members? Over here to my right. I was counting on that, Board Member Countryman.
The homeless thing, there's been a sea change
Disaster.
in our ability to deal with homeless encroachments in the flood project. I'm kind of surprised to see that there. Are steps being taken to remove that? Or I don't know, is it the Sheriff's Department or the City of Sacramento that's supposed to help us with that?
I think that might be you.
Yeah, anyone have the answer to that?
I wish I had all the answers to that one. Once again, Tim Kerr, American River Flood Control District. We have various jurisdictions across our 40 miles of levees here in Sacramento. We're a highly urbanized district, so we do have a lot of different challenges that we face along our levees, with the unhoused being a pretty big challenge these days. With the different jurisdictions, we have different protocols that we work through to address the encampments. And in some areas, they're being managed differently than other areas, and in that specific area, we're working closely with our partners at the City of Sacramento. They don't have sufficient resources to relocate all the camps right now, so we work on a priority-based system where we're always trying to keep the levee crownway cleared at all times, and then our second priority would be keeping the levee slopes clear. We'll work around them temporarily until we can get on the city's calendar to have them removed off the levee slope. It is quite a burden to us and our team, though, because there's so much debris that's generated. We're constantly removing that. And then there's also the fire hazard of not being able to manage the vegetation very close to the camps due to safety and stuff like that. And then there's also just they're obstructing our visibility and our ability to do the maintenance and inspections we need to do. But we're working through it. There is more momentum going now to allow us to relocate the camp, so I do see progress in that.
I don't know if you recall, the board did a on-site inspection of the lower American River homelessness issue. Has that been cleared now, or is that
Yeah,
still
that's looking a lot better through that area. And we're working closely with the county parks and their county rangers to stay on top of that and keep that area clear. This is more in the north area. Steelhead Creek and Arcade Creek now is kind of our ground zero for where the encampments are.
And one facetious question, has NIMDEC replaced the Steelhead Creek naming?
The trend is to call it Steelhead Creek nowadays because it sounds more habitat friendly and whatnot than NIMDEC, but us engineers still call it NIMDEC.
Okay.
Thank you.
I didn't understand that. I'm glad the two of you did. Yeah.
Any other questions?
I live in an entirely different community, and the issue of the unhoused is huge everywhere. I don't think there's a community across our country that doesn't face that, and it's pretty acute here.
Yeah.
So you work it out on one spot, moves to another. It's tough. So we're now calling it encroachment. Something else, problem. Member Bosler.
Yeah, I do live here in Sacramento, and I've been involved with a nonprofit called River City Waterway Alliance, and I know they've been doing a lot of cleanup, especially on this creek stretch. But it's an ongoing issue. So you get out there and clean, but a few months go by, like there's more. So, but there's definitely not enough resources in the public sphere to be able to manage all of it. So really thankful for these really dedicated volunteers that have been activated here in Sacramento to do these cleanups.
That includes you, right? Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Board members. Did I already call for the audience? Audience, have any comments or questions on this presentation? Are you audience? Member Countryman.
Board member
always.
Countryman. We're not trying to be mean to people that are having a hard time. When we did our inspection out there, there was clear evidence of excavation into the levee to make a nice flat spot for their tents, and evidence of defecation and urination going directly into the American River. I mean, these are serious issues, and I think we should do a lot, but public safety has to have some priority. The city of Sacramento was able to clear the area around City Hall, no problem. So I don't think it should be a problem to protect our levees.
Through the chair.
Noted. Member Grego. I don't know what
Since
to do about it.
I just happened to go out with the general manager last week from 784, and we talked about this issue, because it's everywhere. And he, I asked him about the homeless population and how is that going? And he says it's their consistency about being, always out there and moving them along that has created a better situation for them. But as it's been stated, usually they push them from one area to another, and it's a cycle is what it is. And so making sure that they're not excavating or creating ruts or, the levee folks need to have their eyes on those levees and the potential of, a failure, looking for those evidence. And sometimes those can be covered up by the tents or by their garbage. And so it really puts the rest of the community at risk.
Thank you. One more wave at the board. Anyone on this side? Anyone in the audience? Do we have any hands up on this? Thank you, Mr. Peak.
All right, thank you very much.
Ms. Green, thank you for being here, Mr. Kerr, giving feedback on the tremendous effort that the district does do and the challenges. Item 9, board items. Item A is a briefing on the Folsom Dam raise. Board staff Selva Mohan from the Flood System Improvement Branch will introduce this item.
Good morning. Good morning, President Dolan, members of the board. My name is Selva Sallumohan. I am the manager of the Sacramento Levy section. Today, I am here with Jeremy Crowder, project manager from DWR, to give an informational briefing on the Folsom Dam Raise project. This is an informational briefing and agenda item 9A. Next slide.
Thank you.
So this slide shows major flood risk reduction projects that are currently underway in the greater Sacramento region. The American River Common Features 2016 project that improves levees around Sacramento River levees and American River levees. The Natomas Basin project improves levees surrounding the Natomas Basin. And the third one is the Folsom Dam Raise project shown on the right side of this picture. The dam was constructed in 1950s and became a major cornerstone in reducing flood risk to the greater Sacramento region. So now I invite Jeremy to give an information on the dam raise project.
Thank you, Selva. Good morning, President Dolan, Vice President Valines, and members of the board. My name is Jeremy Crowder. I'm a senior project manager with the Department of Water Resources in the Flood Projects branch.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Glad to have you.
Hi, good. I work in coordination with the board staff on the Folsom Dam Raise project, and I'm joined by Dan Campos, a senior PM for the Folsom Dam project with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. Oh, I'm sorry, the next slide, yeah. Okay. As an overview for this presentation, I'll provide a background of Folsom Dam and the Folsom Dam Raise project, followed by describing the project elements being constructed, and finish up with project updates of the 5 project contracts that make up the Folsom Dam Raise Flood Risk Management Project. Next slide, please. This slide presents project partners who work together on the project. The USA Army Corps of Engineers leads the design and construction efforts for the project and works closely with the Bureau of Reclamation, who operates and maintains its facilities. Multiple agencies and consultants are supporting project design and delivery of the various construction contracts. The non-federal sponsors, partners include the Department of Water Resources, Central Valley Flood Protection Board, Sacramento Area Flood Control Agency, with support projects providing cost share payments, work-in-kind support, and lands, easements, right-of-way, relocations, and disposal, also known as LERTs. Next slide, please. Here I wanted to briefly explain the layout of the dam spillway. The existing Folsom Dam is shown here to the left. It has 5 of the 8 gates flowing open. And to the right is the auxiliary spillway, also known as the JFP or Joint Federal Project. And it's shown closed, not flowing. Folsom Dam and its associated facilities, impound on the American River, that forms Folsom Lake. And as Selva said, it was constructed in 1955 by the Army Corps of Engineers. And the dam and the facilities, again, are operated by the Bureau of Reclamation. The auxiliary spillway was constructed in 2018 and is functioning now. The spillway is 50 feet lower than the main dam gates, which allows for more operational flexibility with early releases at lower water surface elevations, and enables larger flood releases. The Folsom Dam Race project and the auxiliary spillway and the ongoing American River Commons Features 2016 project are expected to provide the 200-year level of flood protection for the greater Sacramento area. Next slide, please. Here's a table that shows the Folsom Dam Race background and milestones, which started back in 1996 with the original authorization of the Folsom Dam Raise Modification Project in the WRDA. This table shows the dates to the left, the activities that have happened, and how we've coordinated with the board as well. That includes informational briefings like the one today, and informational reports like the SCIS EIR environmental document in 2018 has been provided. And we have been and will continue with board interaction at all stages of the project, as shown in the X's in the far right column. Other milestone activities include the start of construction in 2019 with Dike 8, and construction completion is going to be in late 2029 or early 2030. Next slide, please. The Folsom Dam Raise flood control objectives are outlined here. First bullet is to pass the probable maximum flood with 3 foot of freeboard. The peak inflow for the PMF is at 906,000 CFS. And the existing release capacity for the main dam is at about 520,000 CFS. And the existing auxiliary spillway at about 300,000 CFS. So combined, it's about 830,000 CFS, which is short of the 906, PMF. But after the Folsom Dam Raise project, the improved release capacity for the dam and the spillway will be at around 920,000 CFS, above the probable maximum flood. The other Folsom Dam Raise flood control objectives are to provide additional emergency capacity for flood operations and to pass the 100-year flow at 115,000 CFS maximum release, and to pass the 200-year maximum flood at 160,000 maximum release. Next slide, please. This slide shows the project location and elements being constructed for the Folsom Dam Raise. And thanks for the Army Corps for providing this image. This is a good layout here. There are 5 individual flood projects for the Folsom Dam Raise. And they're identified here in the color codes. Dikes 1 through 6 is in the top left in yellow. Dike 1 through 3 is located by Granite Bay, and 4 through 6 is by Bills Point. And in green is the main dam and the left and right wing dams. Combined, it's called main dam, wing dam, or MDWD. And the existing JFP auxiliary spillway is shown here in blue. And then continuing in counterclockwise order, there's Dike 7, Dike 8, which has been completed, and the Mormon Island Auxiliary Dam, known as MIAD. Next slide, please. The Folsom Dam project will add top seal bulkheads to each of the dam's main gates, all 8 of those, and is shown here in red in image 1, which shows the typical dam gate and the pier with improvements. The new top seals will allow the gates to remain closed for higher water surface elevations and more water storage and more release flexibility. Additionally, the new top seals will prevent the Tainer gates from overtopping. And overtopping would result in the gates being unable to open, unable to operate. And if the overtopping occurs over the backside of the gates, that would overstress the trunnions, which would fail the gates. And the trunnions is shown in the image as well. Down at the bottom, it's the pivot point. And along with the top seals, vertical extensions are being added as well to all 9 of the concrete piers. And the pier extension is also shown in that image up to the top. And then other elements for the projects are the left and right wing dam that are being raised 3.5 feet with concrete flood walls. And the 8 reservoir dikes and MIAD will also be raised 3.5 feet with concrete flood walls or earth-filled material. And then 2 to the right shows the typical flood wall section. Next slide, please. Here we have the current construction progress laid out, and design for all of the phases are complete, and all projects, with the exception of Dike 7, are either in construction or have been constructed. Shown from the top, Dike 8 was constructed in 2020 as the first element of the Folsom Dam Raise project, and was also the site of the groundbreaking ceremony earlier that year. And the wing dams, main dams, and dikes 1 through 6 are all projected to be completed by the end of next year. And dike 7 will likely be the last raise and estimated to be completed in 2027. And finally, the main dam would be the final element, which is anticipation completion at the end of 2029 or early 2030. Next slide, please. As stated in the previous slide, here is the pic of that groundbreaking ceremony, the first one at the upper left, with many familiar faces there, including former President Bill Edgar, Board President Bill Edgar, DWR Director Carla Nemeth, Congresswoman Matsui, and others. That ceremony was on January 21st, 2020, and the contractor also mobilized at that time. The next pic below is from February 2020, showing grading activities. And the final pic to the right shows dike 8 completed in June 2020, June 26, 2020, and dike 8 was completed in 5 months, 158 days. Good, yeah. Next slide, please. The next project that I want to share is updates on the main dam and the right wing dam work. From the top left, picture 1 shows the main dam with its 8 gates. They are numbered at the top, 1 through 8, 8 being to the right. And gate 8 is the first gate being improved. May be hard to see there, but gate 8 scaffolding is installed for the Pier 9 work. And this picture is from May of this year. Other pics on this slide show some work being done, stop logs, insulation, dewatering work, and pic 5 up there shows Pier 9 work on the scaffolding, which is shown in that first pic, and yeah, way up there. And pictures, images 6 and 7 show floodwall work at the right wing dam. Next slide, please. And to identify some highlights on the main dam, wing dam construction, the proof of concept, POC construction for gate 8 and for piers 8 and 9 are progressing. And to explain what the POC is, it's a validation step for the contractor to ensure that the plan, schedule, methods, and quality control are viable for efficiently doing the construction. For the main dam, the contractor performs a start-to-finish execution on a single gate, which is gate 8 for this. And the POC is expected to be completed in May next year, of next year. Then the contractor will move on to gate 7. Second bullet, another highlight is the corbel design for the stop logs for gates 1 through 7, which are complete. That new design will allow work for the contractor to do work on 2 adjacent gates concurrently. So as the contractor will move to gate 7 after gate 8 is complete, with the new corbel design, the contractor may be able to work on 6 and 7 together. So really good for the schedule there. And last bullet, for the right wing dam, and 90% of the 1.3 mile flood wall has been constructed. Then after that, they'll move on to the left wing dam. That'll follow next. Next slide, please. Here we have some construction pictures for MIAD, the Mormon Island Auxiliary Dam. Picture 1 and 2 show some cutoff work being done. 3 and 4 show concrete foundation and rebar work, and pic 5 and 6 show the constructed flood wall. Next slide, please. So MIAD cutoff wall construction has been completed. That cutoff wall is about 18 feet deep, and it ties into the subsurface core. About 60% of the flood wall has been built, and that flood wall is directly above the cutoff wall, and that cutoff wall and flood wall length is just under a mile total. Also, backfill is in progress on both sides of the flood wall, and the MIAD project completion is expected at the end of this year or in January 2026. Next slide, please. So similar to MIAD, dikes 1, 4, 5, and 6 uses concrete flood walls for their 3.5-foot raise. The remaining dikes 2 and 3 uses compacted fill material. And these pics here we're taking during various phases of the flood wall construction. So I want to describe to you with these pictures some of the process and sequence of the flood wall construction. So after excavation and grading, the concrete foundation is poured as shown in picture 1. And that's of dike 6. Then the footing formwork and rebar is built. That's shown in picture 2. Then the footings are poured, followed by the walls formwork, and the concrete is poured. That's shown in pictures 3 and 4. And picture 5 shows the flood wall constructed, and it's also taken from Bill's Point looking north. And this is actually where we were standing at the board site tour back in June with board member Joe Countryman. Finally, picture 6 shows dike 1 complete flood wall. Next slide, please. So the flood walls at dike 1 and dike 6 have been constructed, and dike 4 flood wall is underway. Dike 3, which is a compact fill dike, is nearly complete, with just some sand filter graining that remains. And then dike 2, another compact fill dike, will continue after 3 is complete. And dike 5 construction will begin after 4 is complete and should be the last dike on the dikes 1 through 6 project, with estimated completion in mid-2026. Next slide, please. And the dike 7 design shown here is complete and should be the last Folsom Dam raised flood wall to be constructed. The dike 7 site area is shown here with image 1 at the upper left side, west of dike 8. It's approximately 900 feet long flood wall constructed, and the typical section is shown in image 2. And then image 3 at the bottom right shows the existing conditions at dike 7, looking from the north of the site facing southeast. Last slide, please. And any questions?
Wow. Thank you.
Thank you.
Board members, questions, input? I want to know how you got a tour, Mr. Countryman, and the rest of us did not.
Joe Countryman, board member. Thank you, Jeremy, for a really great presentation. Very clear, easy to follow and understand. I appreciate that. When I was in another career as a consultant, we realized that once the levees were completed and the auxiliary spillway was added to Folsom, the weak link for protection of Sacramento was still the American River. By far had the greatest residual risk for possible flooding of Sacramento. And we looked at what the possibilities were, and the one that was the best, most straightforward and implementable was this project, the raising. The 3.5-foot raising has, that's not what is significant. What is significant is those 8 gates on the top of the existing dam that when they're sealed at the top allow, I think if I recall correctly, almost 10 feet of additional surcharge at Folsom over what the current condition is. That means you could, as a dam operator, we could hold the same release for a longer period of time before we were forced to increase the releases that would possibly break the levees downstream. I asked for a tour out there a couple months ago, and it went out and took a look at it. And the progress is really great. And the gates, I'm really anxious to find out what the plan of concept, how that works out on that gate 8 construction, if there's significant changes or not that occur because of that. But once that project's complete, I would say the American River will no longer be the greatest source of danger to Sacramento. And I hope I live to see it, because it's been a long, long fight since 1986. For me, personally, since I was operating Folsom, when we had to increase the flows above 115,000 CFS, to get the levees first and foremost up to where they can handle the releases. Secondly, the reoperation of Folsom Dam. You know, you may not realize, or you do realize, that the flood operation diagram for Folsom has been changed already and made significant changes in the level of protection for Sacramento. And once this project's complete, the operating rules for Folsom will again be revised and implemented to take full advantage of the project that we have here. So this, in my mind, is one of the greatest things that the board, this Department of Water Resources, and the Corps of Engineers has been able to focus on and complete in a pretty timely manner for, you know, projects like this. And I really feel great about seeing this presentation today, and thank you.
Thank you.
Through the chair.
Thank you, Mr. Countryman. We should probably put you on the panel to do presentations as well. Yeah, thanks. Member Grego.
I don't have a question, but I want to make a comment. These reservoirs are so important to the flood control, you know, program. And I didn't realize how much until January of 2017, when there was a near failure on the Oroville Dam. And so with that being said, was there any lessons that were learned in regards to your project there in Folsom as it relates to the Oroville Dam?
You know, nothing I can think of as far as, you know, with the new construction, the design and stuff, no.
That's great. And knowing that you know, it's being constructed now and to all the modern engineering, that's comforting. And listening to Joe and his comments as well, it puts Sacramento at a much safer place. I know in my own backyard, we have Bullards, which they're working on the ARC program, which will give us down in the valley a 500-year level of protection, which we're grateful for that as well. So these projects are so darn important to the North State, and glad for the presentation today.
Thank you.
Thank you. No? No? In the audience? Anyone in the audience? Here to my left, to the front? Any hands up? No? I agree with Member Countryman. I don't speak for the board. There are a couple things in there I'm going to have to look up in the dictionary or ask him what it means. But amazing work. Maybe we can have a tour at some point. I know it's difficult when you're constructing to have people come and do the looky-loo.
Yeah.
So we'll just send Member.
Security's pretty tight there, too.
Yeah, would hope so. We'll just send Member Countryman. He can report. And you as well. Thank you very much for the presentation.
Thank you.
No wrap-up, huh? Okay. All right, thank you. We'll just keep going, all right? It's been an hour. This is going on very, very well. Board item 9B is presentation of the board's operation branch activities. You're up first, huh? Annalise Calizo, you're going to be first. Board staff operations.
Good morning.
It says board staff operations for all of them, but I know you have a more elaborate job.
There's a whole team behind us, yes. I
Yeah.
will start the presentation. If we could get the presentation up on the screen. Okay, well, good morning, President Dolan, members of the board. My name is Angeles Calizo. I manage the enforcement section. And unfortunately, Mr. Igor Leong, who's our operations branch manager, is unable to be here with you today. So I will do my best to fill in a few slides for him, and then I will be turning it over to the other program managers to cover their respective programs. Okay. Next slide, please.
Oh, okay.
So the operations branch is made up of 3 sections, led by Mr. Iwo Liang. The permitting section is led by Mr. Steve Lamb, the inspection section by Preston Shopbell, and the enforcement sections that I lead. We also have some supporting staff within the operations branch, and that is Ms. Teresa Stern and Vanessa Najera. Both are present, and I do think we have the majority of the board operations staff is actually present and here in the audience for the majority. I'd also lead a team of 3 students, 2 of which were announced earlier today by Mr. Leaf, that are also part of the records update program that I'm also leading. I'll cover that a little bit later in my presentation. So next slide, please. So the presentation is framed around the draft strategic plan that Mr. Leaf presented to you a couple weeks ago, or just about a week ago. God, time flies. The primary function of the operations branch are central to the first goal of the strategic plan, and which includes 3 objectives that we have identified are applicable to the operations branch. That includes the administering of the board's regulatory programs, pursuing continual improvements, and updating the regulations, standards, processes for improvement to the system and enhancing resilience to reduce long-term flood risk in the Central Valley. Next slide, please. So in alignment with the strategic plan, the operations branch goal remains to efficiently implement the board's regulatory programs. And with that, I will turn it over to, actually, I have one more slide. Gotta check my notes. Next slide, please. So the branch proactively continues to look ways for improvements within the operations, from standard operating procedures to water code changes and analytical tools and other improvements to our databases, including improving those updates and also providing better accuracy to the records in the system. The slides cover some of those improvements, some which have already been undertaken, others that are currently under works, and the respective managers here, Steve and Preston, will cover some of those later in their presentation. I would like to make a special note, though, for one of the key accomplishments that took over this year was the execution of the architectural and engineering contract. That was a huge achievement for the board in our ability to be able to expand capacity. Mr. Iwo Liang was one of the primary leads in taking that effort and getting it executed. So I didn't want to pass this opportunity to give him some kudos and acknowledge his the leadership and what he provided to bring that into effect. And so with that, I will turn it over to Mr. Steve Lamb for his portion of the presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning,
We
President.
will tell him you did a fine job.
Good morning, President Dolan, members of the board. Steve Lamb, Permitting Section Manager. And we have the photos of the team here, but I also would like to ask my team to please stand up. We have Humberto Negrete, Aaron Bernacci, Selena Ortega, Saida Ara, and to my left, Vanessa Najera. Diana Chen is with the team, but she's currently on leave. She's expected back in October. And, you know, without this group of individuals, we wouldn't be successful. So I give them huge kudos. They're an extremely great bunch of people.
Thank you for that.
No problem. And so with this team, you know, we embark on a lot of tasks within the permitting section. Currently, we have probably around 200 permits, another 30 or 40 actions. So this team is very diligently working day in, day out to promote the permitting goals and those objectives, which on the list presented. Next slide, please. So here's a diagram that we see oftentimes in the staff activity report, and I wanted to take a moment to kind of go over what this diagram means and its significance, or just so the public as well as the board understands what it is we're embarking on. And so this describes all the permits that we have in the permitting section. About 33% of them are with permitting staff, about 33% are with the Corps, an additional 33% are with applicants, awaiting information, needing more information. The two gray bars you might see in the middle, what's happening? Well, we had bad data. I couldn't present good data to break it up during the 3 months. We changed an operational metrics protocol at that time, and the data was skewed. So sorry for that misrepresentation, but just in all transparency, that's what's going on there. Next slide, please. So within this table, we're working to illustrate the board in its totality. So this is all board permits, all sections, not just permitting. Selva's group, Greg's group. And what we're seeing here is over the course of the year to date, we have received 90 permit applications. 35 of those have been posted through EO delegations, so they have not come to the board. Permitting actions by the board are represented by 25 of those. We currently have sent 18 transmittals to the Corps of Engineers for their review. We've received 13 letters of permission from the Corps, so those are federal projects, and we've issued 66 projects in total. So as you can see, of those 13, you take away the 66, right? That's how many have been total issued, and the portion of them are federal and non-federal. Additionally, I talked about other authorizations and requests. These requests are what we refer to as minor alteration maintenance requests. These are repairs to facilities, repairs to encroachments that already have a permit, repairs to system features, how we reference them, levee erosion protection, drain pipes that are part of the flood control system that need to be repaired. And so those actions are also reviewed by staff to ensure that that repair is done pursuant to Title 23 and is done in a proper manner that will be resilient. Next slide, please. So I'll go over a few things that we're working through with in the permitting section. We're coordinating with USACE for permit process improvements continually. I'm sorry.
Member Bosler, I just wanted to say yay for that sentence you just gave, but I don't know it, Member Bosler.
Yeah, no, I just want to make sure I'm grounded in the numbers. When you say 90 year to date and then you have 66 issued, does that 90 include everything that cumulative or just what we've received since January?
Just what we've received since January.
So what is the number outstanding?
If we go back, I think it's 3 slides to that bar chart.
Okay. Oh, yeah, the bar chart. Yeah. Okay.
That's kind of the running total.
Okay, the 200.
So if we summed up, if we looked at July and summed
Okay.
up July, that would be the total permits.
Okay, got it. Okay.
And so it's kind of it's really like flow, inflow versus outflow. We're continually having this reservoir, if you will,
Right.
holding a consistent number of about 215, 200 permits.
Right, 200 permits. Okay. And we've issued 66 this year.
Correct.
Great. Okay, thank you.
So we're still at a deficit if we do the math, right? 90 in, 66 out. We're at 30 as far as the deficit. Thank you. So we also have the permit application portal, which Preston talked about at the workshop. Where we have the WebEP, which is our database that we utilize for all project-related materials. We've done that modernization. We also have the architectural and engineering contract that Annalise spoke about, and we're developing new task orders to produce a metrics, kind of a dashboard for the staff and team. Next slide, please. So the goal, as in Objective 1.2, as Annalise pointed out, is to streamline application submissions and improve efficiency of the permit review. How do we do that? We do that through frequent coordination, pre-application meetings, and we're looking at pilots of concurrent project reviews with the Corps of Engineers. So our goal to achieve this is, we want applicants to gain a better understanding of what we need to produce a permit. This leads to applications being more complete, more concise, less back and forth, less potential frustration with the public through our process. It also helps us get through the process easier. So these communication improvements definitely help that status and move it forward. Next slide, please. So to date, we've had 14 coordination meetings with the Corps of Engineers. We meet at least once a month, if not every other week. We just talk amongst ourselves. We discuss projects that might be a challenge. We discuss what's coming up that might be of concern or need more attention. We also host those pre-application meetings where the Corps of Engineers is in attendance. At that same time, we break down what we need as a state-led permitting regulatory authority for our review. We also allow the Corps of Engineers to state what they need so we can get that comprehensive review from applicants. I spoke on pilot testing to concurrent reviews. What we're doing is we're looking to review our review concurrent with the Corps of Engineers. Our current process is our board staff reviews a permit for Title 23 compliance. I would say 95% of the regulations within Title 23 are parallel, if not very similar technically, to the Corps of Engineers. The goal of that current effort is we kind of cut the chaff, right? We get things in line, and so when it comes to the Corps, it should be streamlined on their end. There are certain federal requirements, though, that may or may not hold up that process outside of the technical review. And so what we're looking at for these pilot projects is to get them in with the Corps of Engineers sooner, allow the Corps of Engineers to begin their review, their technical review. Once we receive that technical review comments, our staff will then look at our technical review comments, bring all the comments together at that point to get to the applicant in an effort to have one set of requests for information or additional information, thereby cutting off maybe one review step between us. And so it's going to take time to tell. Some of these permits have a life of about a year, sometimes 2 years, just depending upon the review cycle. So our hope is to bring some form of continuity and at least ease the public that they're not getting asked for information multiple times. So what are the outcomes we're looking at? One, by having these meetings with the Corps and as well as the applicants, we're improving our communication. We're putting a name to a face for these applicants. The staff consistently get calls from applicants, which we like, right? It's communication. How do we resolve problems? We communicate them. And as well, we're setting the ground rules of what our expectations are, what timelines should be expected. We're finding that a lot of grant funding for projects tend to be in jeopardy. Well, if we can let folks know at the beginning, they can try to make adjustments. They can ask for grace with whoever their grant, those folks are giving them the grants. So again, we get the quality of materials that we need to best review, and additional, we're looking to reduce the timelines. That's what we consistently hear. Takes too long, takes too long. Next slide, please. So then we're looking at basically doing more with less or becoming more efficient. So we're looking ways internally to become automated, to have information at our fingertips. And so this and two will help streamline application process. We want to improve accuracy and efficiency with the data entry. The permit portal helps do just that. We're cutting out a human element of Vanessa and the intake team having to input data from already a PDF document. Well, if the applicant puts it in, why do we have to redo it? So we're looking for ways to shave the time and increase the data transfer. This also allows us to have some transparency with the public. Transparency is gold when we're talking in a government agency. And so we're able to at least articulate what we've received. The applicants will be able to see it. We have a status tracker, which I'll explain later, so the applicants can see, follow the bouncing ball. Where is my application going? So this online application submission form is in my opinion, pretty cutting edge for us. We're moving in the right direction. And so we're also automating the LMA engagement. So the LMAs, they're in charge of managing and maintaining these facilities. Yeah, they get the endorsement, but they don't have really, aside, at least from the board side, a way to track what permits have been issued, what permits have they reviewed. If they have a system in-house, great, but we're formulating that system. So LMAs can go on to this dashboard and be able to see what's happening in their jurisdiction and know, oh, this farmer's putting in a new pump. There's the authorization. Now when I drive down and I see a backhoe, they're not doing something they shouldn't. It's approved work. Let me go talk with them. Again, communication and transparency. So the online submission, it's up and running. It's public. But we have been very selective in onboarding it. We're what I call soft beta testing. Preston and I have worked through 2 or 3 applications thus far and found some errors. And we're having to go back and work with our developers to fix those before we roll it out to all. But it's coming in short order. We're almost there. I just don't want it to fail before it. It's such a good thing that I'm a little scared, nervous, I should say, not scared, right? I want it to be successful. Next slide, please. So here are some snapshots. What you'll see up in the upper right-hand corner is the permit application portal. This really mimics the look of the board website, and that's the goal. We want to make these very homogeneous and work with the applicant. Second, you'll see on the left is a snapshot of our web-based portal. The previous database that we used had more of an Access Excel, I like to refer to as the DOS base, but it was better than that. This is more user-friendly. It's got a softer look, and it's a lot more accessible than the old version. And then in the lower right, that's a snippet of that application tracker that we have embedded in. And so this tracker is both viewable by the permitting section team, or actually the board team, and the applicants. So they'll be able to see how their project's moving through the process and where they're at, what the last action was. This is twofold goal here, is maybe I can eliminate 4 20-minute phone calls a day to staff, which again, would shave about an hour of time. They can be busy working on a project rather than maybe responding to an inquiry. We appreciate the inquiry, but if the applicant can look here, now the staff doesn't have to necessarily respond because the applicant's question is answered. So we're looking for ways internally to find and solve some time management. Next slide, please. So the permit application portal will streamline data entry. It allows ease of application submittal. It reduces the loss of data provided via hard copy or email. The web EP entry will have an improved data entry retrieval, so all the data is better searchable. We can find things a little bit easier, related permits and such. It'll also serve as a platform for future improvements. So building on this is the foundation, the groundwork, as we look for metrics and other things of that nature. And so the desire here is to reduce timelines for permitting. Next slide, please. So I talked a little bit about what's to come. So it's kind of a very passionate, I guess, pet project for me is something internal, something to benefit the staff in an effort to put all the permits at their fingertips that they're in charge of. I give, again, huge praise and kudos to Humberto and Selena as we've been going through some transitions, gaining some new employees, and they've been vexed with having over 100 permits in their lap. Tracking 100 things is absolutely difficult, and we did it as a team. We did it through Excel. Excel has its downsides, and so I noticed that. That's a problem. How can we improve that? So part of my next is to create kind of a project management level dashboard for the employees to be able to have that at their fingertips. They'll be able to look in at permit aging. How long has this one been with me? What is the priority on this one? And how can I manage my day and my operations as an individual better? And so that's the goal of the dashboard. But on the back side, from a management side and from a board side, we'll now be able to have some of those, what I call OKRs, those objective key results, the things that we're looking for. Where's the bottleneck? As well as metrics and performance indicators to see how are we doing? And then, again, it's a foundation for how do we ask for more resources? How do we know if we need more people? Where do we need to go to improve this? And so that's really the next step that we're excited about here in permitting. Next slide, please. All right, I'll pause it before I hand it over to Preston. Questions, please.
And I really appreciate the thoughtfulness that you have approached really improving our processes, and I just want to applaud you. So thank you.
Well, thank you. It's definitely a team. Preston's been a co-part, Igor, and the rest of the staff. It's just we're embarking on, I think, pretty monumental change for the board. I've only been here for 5 years, so it's monumental for me.
Yeah.
Through the chair.
Yes, Stu. Thank you, Member Bosler. Member Griego?
I just want to echo what Board Member Bosler said, great presentation, and you're working within the toolbox that you have, to be more efficient, streamline work. Communication is a big key to what your presentation was. And for me as a board member, it's always been about advocacy. In the experience that I have with flood control, working, with the folks back in DC, a lot of these regulations were written 30, 40 years ago. And so in order to create more efficiencies, those types of regulations and processes need to be updated. And so for me, as a board member, the communication between what you do and what we do is really important to advocate for what really is slowing us down. And that's what I'll be looking for. But I'm really excited about what you're doing in your department, and the work that you've done as a team is really important. The next step for me is to hear from you what we need to do for advocacy for the federal and state government to update some of their regulations, because time is money. And there's not enough money right now, so time is really important. Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you, Member Bosler. Member Countryman, you're waving at me.
I'm compulsive, I'm sorry.
No apology necessary.
When you mentioned you have meetings, are those Zoom meetings?
Yes, sir.
So that's great. You're not having people travel all around and everything.
Correct.
And do you have like a list of items that 408 items that are different than what board items are? I'm trying to think about how the biggest problem I see is the interface between the core review of 408 and what our review is. Seems like we could be cut 6 or 8 months off of the whole process if what we review meets all of the requirements, the federal requirements and the state requirements. So do we have a focus on that, like in your pre-meetings? This looks like this will be a 408 item. You're going to have these things for the Corps of Engineers?
Yes, those are 100% laid out during those meetings. What generally happens is the quality of the material is not always there. And as we review it with the Corps for some of these technical aspects, our staff is limited to looking at the regulatory framework posed in Title 23. And I would say we're darn good at it. We may have less aptitude or knowledge of all the EMs that come through the Corps. And that is sometimes in the technical spot where we do get tripped up from, state to federal. And that backstop with the Corps has been tremendously beneficial. Aside from that, I think a lot of it stems through the regulatory program and the NEPA side of things at the Corps, that the state sticks to the CEQA information. I was just on a call yesterday with the Corps of Engineers, and technically I think we fall in lockstep quite well. It's some of the other programs where once it leaves that technical side of the Corps of Engineers house, they basically, I wouldn't want to say lose control, but lose management of pressure to get things done. If we farm something out to U.S. Fish or California Fish and Wildlife, we too would lose a little control over getting that done. So that's the message I'm hearing. And I don't want to put Chandra on the spot. She's here with me. If you want to ask more of that same question.
Well, you kind of know where I'm coming from
Yep.
on this stuff anyway, but I think you're doing a fantastic job, and I think this is really new area, like the other board members have saying, of moving forward with this portal. And it seems like the potential is there, even if we get the Corps to use it, that we could be more responsive. I mean, when I say we, for the permittee to get his approval, in a quicker, more efficient way, if we had software that both agencies could use to manage the process. Anyway, good job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Anything else, board members? Audience? To the right?
All
To
right.
the back?
I'll hand it over to Mr. Shotbell.
Hands up? Okay. All right.
Thanks, Steve. Good morning, President Dolan, members of the board, President Shotwell with the inspection section, and happy to be presenting on the inspection portion of the ops branch. Good to see you again. So I'll cut straight to it for what our inspection group is for. Our primary purpose is relatively simple, but extremely important, to make sure that the permitted encroachments that Steve's group and our agency issue are built and maintained according to those permit conditions and to federal standards, like Section 408. Next slide, please. So this is a bit of, better?
Go back and introduce your team.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Back one slide. We don't do it alone. We have a team. They're on the screen, and they're also in person right here on the side. Guys, can you please stand up? This is Zach Ramsey, Josh Kaup, and Ken Ramirez. They're our inspection team. They deserve it. They're covering an area about 75 miles wide from Reading to Bakersfield, and I looked it up. That's about from D.C. to Boston in north to south miles. So a lot of ground to cover. They're using their time efficiently and still improving our program while they're getting their daily work done. So thank you. Appreciate it, President Dolan. So some of the work that we've output over the 2025 so far and comparing it to 2024. On the left side, you see the field visits that our inspectors make. You can obviously see a gradual increasing trend from January through May. That's coming out of the flood season, where there's fewer construction projects, and then getting into the construction season, we're visiting many more sites. The difference between 24 and 2025 could be just the amount of work that was out there. It could be the number of inspectors we had. We had a little turnover in staff. But you can see we're in full construction inspection mode right now. On the flip side, when inspection is done, the last thing on their list to do is a construction closeout report. So they make sure that the project was built according to the permit conditions and make sure all the databases are updated so that we have good record of it. And then it goes to me for review. And they're also working with the permittee to get those final documentation, whether it's a compaction report, pipe inspection results, or an as-built, so we have adequate documentation for it. You can see the construction closeout reports are a little bit inverse. Those green bars are generally higher in the winter months when we have fewer things going out in the field. We can kind of catch up and finalize those reports. So there's a reason for that difference. go on to the next slide. So our group also conducts a lot of coordination, just like our permitting section as well. During the flood season, we are kind of the front line for reviewing and processing time variance requests. I'll say it many times, I'll say it again. Technically, we're not supposed to have any construction being done during the flood season. It doesn't mean it can never be done. They just need to check in with us and make sure that the scope of work they're proposing and the forecast and stream conditions are favorable for the proposed work. Our staff reviews that and recommends approval from our chief engineer. So before every flood season, we're out there, or we're doing outreach to make sure that people, we're checking in with them to say, are you going to go into the flood season? If so, this is how you need to check in with us, and you can continue your work. So they have done a good job of that outreach every year. We still, you notice our section is relatively small compared to some of the others, and we have a lot of work to cover. Before our inspection section existed, Department of Water Resources Flood Project and Inspection and Assessment Group did the inspections on behalf of the board. And while we are the front line for permitted inspections, they still help kind of close that gap on certain sites we can't get to, or when we have a staffing shortfall. So just wanted to throw that out there and thank them for their work to assist in our program continually. We also host monthly coordination meetings with DWR, Division of Flood Ops, and the Army Corps Levees and Channels Branch. It kind of goes across all of our programs. It's sort of a check-in meeting, keeping that door open for all of our programs that may affect each other, and it gains the ability for us to spin off into those side conversations and make sure that our programs are aware of what everyone else is doing, so we don't work in our own silos. We also facilitate the LMA Board Work Group, or LBWG, for some of those more intractable problems that are applicants or permittees or local maintaining agencies have, whether it's the state and federal process or inspections. It can go through a whole bunch of different topics, but that's that forum for us to kind of get into small group teams to figure out some sort of solution that works for all of our agencies. Yes.
I do know LMA is local maintaining agency, right?
Correct.
I'm not so sure I can convert LBWG.
It's just the combination of those. LMA Board Work Group. It's just the group that gets together and talks.
Okay, so the LMA got reduced to L.
There you go. That absolutely. Here we are.
You might want to add an S, because it's not the board that does this. And we have this confusion all the time. We've got the board, we've got the board staff, we've got the board organization.
Absolutely.
So if you want to include one of the board members.
And board members are absolutely, that actually, the previous president was in those meetings as well. So anyone's invited to, so absolutely.
You could put this president on the list.
Will do. We also coordinate with DWR's Deferred Maintenance Program. That's the program that helps video inspect, and repair or replace the system pipes that that are aging in the system, that are high-risk pipes. They turn to us to make sure that the pipe they're actually looking at, they get our input on the final word on, is it actually a system pipe, or does this belong to an owner, and just making sure that the maintenance responsibilities are clear. So we help with them, and also disseminate their work out so that people know that this big cut in the levee, that's okay. We're replacing this pipe. These are the people that are doing it. So again, coordinating that effort. And then finally, our inspectors do serve on the flood activation rosters during emergencies. So all of our inspectors have been called out into the field to help provide technical assistance and assess sites during emergency activations. And a few of our staff are also in the Flood Operations Center doing some of those dispatches. So we're happy to help and be on the team with Department of Water Resources to respond to help LMAs and serve for those. Next slide, please. I spoke about this briefly at the August 8th workshop, but this is an improvement for our program that we are currently working on is the routine inspection program. Based on some of your feedback, we're moving forward. The goal remains the same, to maintain the compliance of an encroachment with the permitted conditions, right? So things don't change over time, that encroachments that have been permitted continue to be maintained according to the permit. And ultimately, that's to help improve our inspection results and increase the eligibility for PL 8499. You've noted in the previous presentation about the line item of encroachments on those reports. That is a huge issue, and the board recognizes that, and that's what we spend our time on. So shifting that program to those higher risk encroachments that could have a negative effect or negative performance impact on the levees, that's where we're shifting this program to. Doesn't mean we're going to neglect everything else in a designated floodway or regulated stream that's maybe non-federal, but we're thinking about a new approach for outreach to permittees to make sure that ownership is still current, things like that. Next slide. Another area of improvements for our group is the development of a mobile field inspection app. From that Architect A&E contract that our organization was able to get, we're creating a task order to develop what you would hope an inspector could have in the field. A quick way to download the information in the field geographically and be able to do their report while on site, so we don't have to just take our pictures, come back to the office, write the report, and rinse and repeat. They can do it a little bit more real time and have it uploaded from the field. So I think we're really excited about it. I'm not going to overpromise to my staff, but we're going to try our best to make a good product for them. We also are working on the Title 23 updates that you all are aware of, mainly centered around fees is one package and another one for Article 8, the technical standards. So we're providing input for both of those. Our staff has worked on cost estimating for some of their activities and provided input for those. And for the technical standards, we are helping to get this through the Administrative Procedures Act, the APA guidelines for getting new regulations done. Finally, we also are supporting on automatic board order research and support for those older permits that maybe cloud the responsibility for a permit. Our group many years ago have talked to you about the research on those and trying to help untangle some of what's been written on these older permits and advise on whether that permit needs to be reissued, revoked, and provide some backup documentation on the particular situation to aid in permitting. So I believe that is it for our group. Do you have any questions for our inspection group?
I don't know how you had this all done with 3 staff plus you. Our resources are so limited to the scope of our work.
We try, and honestly, it's
we do better than try. So,
they're judgment calls, right? Of a risk-based approach. We're going to be on a site that is more injurious to the system than we are for something very remote that has a very low impact, but has already gone through the permitting process to prove that what they're doing is a low impact. So we're making those decisions every day to leverage that.
Yeah. All right. Board members here? All right. You have a limit of 7, so you're okay for now. Member Countryman.
I have to agree with our president. For such a small staff, you have a tremendous amount of responsibility out there. Thank you for your efforts. Do you have a drone in your section?
We do not have a drone of our own right now, but we are putting those services into that, one of those task orders so that we can have a consultant come out when we need it. We just haven't found that continual need for it at the moment. We may be drafting some proposals for some funding to do that internally, but based on what we've said here and the amount of free time we have, so to speak, or negative free time that we have, we'd like to have those services on call. So we have those with a contract.
Yeah, because I note in the technical literature currently for all forms of civil engineering projects, inspections are increasingly being done by drones. They can get a better view of what the issue is. There's a vast amount of area that can be covered in a relatively short time. And it seems like, especially with your short staff, that there may be opportunities. They're using drones to, like you say, focus in on the critical items and utilize that information, in your reports.
Agreed. I think a big part of it too is the nature of our work are encroachment specific, right? So they're typically site specific small areas. So it absolutely help to see waterside where it's inaccessible by foot, and absolutely to see the overall view of it. But I think you've seen presentations from consultants and others that have used drone stuff where they're navigating through the system, and that's technically not really the way that our group usually works. We're usually site specific, spending time there, but there's absolutely the need for the different angles and understanding what's happening.
Perhaps we as a board, or maybe some of us on the board, could look at that issue of drone use, and that it's really a work necessity these days. It's not some toy. And I can see that our other divisions or branches, I forget what you all call yourselves, can use that as well as you. Because if you put up the time and the cost of driving, being there, sometimes you got to walk because you have to find it, the whole thing, that would be far more costly, in my opinion, than doing it with a drone. So I think it's kind of time for us to enter the 21st century and stop working with 1980 stuff. So perhaps we can do some advocacy. I know the thing is, we can't give you any more money because we don't have any more money, so you don't get any more money. But if we could break that through, this is cost saving. And it's risk assessment, which is what we need to do so that we don't find the horrible risk when it all falls apart.
Well, my staff that is writing the proposal, I definitely are listening right now. So Thank you.
All right. Well, if you want someone to walk it around, I'll do it.
If you want to fly it, let's go. Let's do it.
No, I don't want to fly it. I want to get you one so you can.
Okay. All right.
Did I ask the audience if they want to talk online? No, not going to do it. Okay. You have more?
Thank you. Nope, that's it for me. I will turn it back to Annalise.
Okay.
Thank you.
Here comes the enforcer.
Yes, I'm back. Good morning again, President Dolan, members of the board, Angeles Calizo. If we could go to the next slide, please. So first, I'd like to take a moment to recognize my team. I lead a team of 4 engineers. Most of them are present here. One is out, and the other ones are feeling under the weather. But if I could have the 2 that are attending here that are present, if they could stand up. So Ian Giocaris is standing there, and Agustin, two are present. Miss Jenny, too, is watching virtually. So Agustin is the most recent one. He joined us in March, and Ian is the other engineer who joined us just a little bit over a year and a half ago. Okay. Like I said, Miss Jenny, too, is watching room only. She was feeling a little bit under the weather, so she wanted to play it safe. And Mr. David Ismailian is actually out today, but he expressed his gratitude and really wanted to be present. Before I carried on with the team, I also want to recognize we do have our attorneys that serve as counsel for enforcement-related matters that are present today with us today, so we're very fortunate. Mr. Peter Thyberg from the Department of Water Resources, and also Ms. Jennifer Sheik, who's sitting back here as well. So they are what's making the things work behind the scenes and helping us be efficient. So thank you both for being present, being here, supporting us. So the enforcement section is focused on carrying out the board's authority that is granted under the California Water Code. And under that, we take enforcement actions that are on a risk-based approach. The enforcement program is designed to take enforcement actions with always the goal of addressing the issue at the lowest level possible. That's always the intention. These section priorities are focused around three criteria. They involve pipes through the levees, unauthorized active construction, and then excavations within the levee. Okay, those are sort of the three. Now, outside of that, we still provide, obviously, we extend services and support the local districts when there are issues that fall outside of those areas. And so we're always open to that. But given that we do have a vast area of responsibility, we do try to be strategic and obviously plan those enforcement actions based on those risk of priorities. Next slide, please. So the slide here on the table that's on the right-hand side of the screen there shows you the section's activities. On the right-hand column, you'll see the activities to date. The section's caseload has been creeping up slightly over the last few months. Primarily, that has been due to an active unauthorized construction that's been taking place. And as I mentioned earlier, that is one of the priorities for the section. So the section's typical workload, it ranges between 50, and here we have about 70 cases or so that are ranging, that are active, which means we're actively engaged and the cases are in different stages of compliance. The team has conducted a total of 46 inspections. These are field inspections, but also site assessments. They sort of range. So we cover, in some cases, when the permitting action or the permitting corrective action has been authorized, we also provide the inspection oversight for that corrective action. So there's field work involved with that. Within this time period, we've issued 10 notices to comply and 2 notices of violation. We have since then closed, during this time period, 7 cases. And that represents about 18 encroachments, right? So oftentimes the cases do involve multiple encroachments. And one thing to note too is that the cases often take a little bit longer to get closed. So most often they may remain open, quote unquote. The issue is resolved, but then the case remains open a little bit longer until there's some additional documentation or there's some other permitting tasks that need to be completed to close out that action. And so that's usually when we present it to you as a closed case, and that essentially ends the action from our team. The section has also taken a more comprehensive role with enforcement actions, as I mentioned earlier. Usually we begin with engagement of the landowners with the notices to comply, and then we start getting them through the permitting process, whether it's a maintenance request, a permitting application, and usually the team processes that as well. And then when that approval gets issued, then the team also oversees the corrective action, the inspection side of it. Part of the reason for that is because it provides continuity, but it also streamlines sometimes the process, right? Information can get lost sometimes when things shift from one to the other. But since when we typically engage the landowners, we've already built that connection, we've already built that communication with them. So it just makes it a really natural flow to continue that conversation with them and walking them through the next steps of compliance. I'd also note that one thing that is not noted here in the table is a cease and desist order we just issued earlier this month. That'll be coming before the board for consideration in the month of September. So the pipe prioritization program is another program that you may have heard at some point in the past. The program, the enforcement section began focusing on pipes as one of the top priorities back in 2019, recognizing the risk that the pipes pose through the risk that they pose through the system. And so in many cases, the pipes have been functional, but oftentimes we don't have any documentation on the maintenance, proper maintenance, or if they are being, the corrective actions are done to Title 23 standards. So the program established a set of priority and a strategy that would systematically approach those pipes in the system. And the intent with the pipe prioritization program, which is covered on the left-hand side on the screen here on the slide. So we began taking existing data. So the data essentially took data that was already collected by the Department of Water Resources Utility Inspections Program, USIP for short. And they had essentially done an inventory of pipes throughout the SPFC facilities. That came down to about 7,000 pipes in the system. Within those pipes, they rate those pipes into 3 categories. our team began to look at sort of the first bucket, which is what they determined to be the urgent pipes, those pipes that have already shown some signs of a deterioration. Sinkholes, it's an open pipe, there's no closure valves, doesn't seem to be operational. So those usually, but again, those are based on physical inspection, right? What is visible? Oftentimes, what my team, when we begin working with those pipes, we're looking at other factors. So we're incorporating additional factors to try to further prioritize and identify those that we believe are at the highest risk. And we put in several factors. Some of those include the age of the pipe, whether it's a through pipe or an up and over pipe, whether it's an urban area, non-urban area. And so that narrows down the list that my team is considering under a program, which is about 420. Now, that number is fluid, right? I want to make sure that this number continues to change. The team goes out and inspects pipes. The ratings, the evaluation changes, the conditions have changed. Sometimes we get notified of some facilities that have failed that were not captured in that original bucket, so that brings them into our program. And so this number is just fluid. But within those 421 pipes that we have there, then we do have we have a bucket of about 29 cases that are currently evaluating 34 pipes, 29 cases, sorry, that are open. But since 2019, we've closed and we've addressed 34 pipes in the system. This year alone, we've actually closed 3 cases that were very significant that are also part of the program. So I'm very happy that while we're not at the end of the year, we're close enough, but we have been successful in reaching compliance with 3 of those 3 cases. Okay, I'll pause there if there's any questions from the board. Okay.
No, 3 is a good goal. These are not simple. The ones that come before us, we understand the work there. Sometimes there's just recalcitrant owners. So your pipe program is fluid?
It's working. Okay, next slide, please. So in the database improvements, I sort of touched on it, and I think Mr. Steve Lamb also touched on it. Again, this is a program that began when we recognized that much of our records, the permitting records, were lacking, allowing the ability for the engineers to make some of those critical decisions about what was before them were very challenging. So we began this effort that we call the permitting records update. And so what that is, the program initially began with operations staff trying to do the 2, and that obviously became very challenging with staffing resources and vacancies. So we were fortunate then to get a dedicated staff of students to help us augment and facilitate that effort. And so with that, the 3 students actually that are part of that effort are actually present today, 2 of which were introduced this morning by Mr. Leaf. So Danielle Johnson is one of our newest hires, and Cecia, her, is also, they both just joined us about a week ago, actually. So they've just been fresh, very, very new, but hitting the ground running. And then as well, Khalid Miyar, who is also sitting here. He's our engineering student assistant that's also facilitating that effort.
Student assistant is probably appropriate. I might say future engineer, future leader, future boss.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. We're very fortunate to have them. Like I said, they're fairly new. They're hitting the ground running. So I'll explain sort of their task and what they're focused on doing. So the permitting database essentially is our records. It's our repository for all of the permitting records. What we found is that much of the data, both within the system to allow querying and populating and reporting, is lacking. And then what the other part is a complete copy of the board's records is also missing. So we have partial records in some of those historical permits. Again, we have permits from 1911, right? Very, very critical information. We have those records, luckily. They just hadn't been digitized. So we began an effort in 2020 to essentially begin from permit number 1 and pulling that permit and then working our way to permit 22,000 or so. So yes, permit number 1. There was a permit number 1 in our file.
So what you find young people are doing is bringing forward the history that is so essential for us to know what was and what could be. And I know paperwork is probably not your number 1 goal of life, but the information that you bring forward really is like creating this museum that is very helpful for the things that we need to do to improve. So thank you. When you're like taking that one other piece of paper, just remember what I just said.
Thank you, President Dolan. So in that effort, what the students are doing, I'll break it up what their tasks are. So we are, Danielle and Cecia essentially come in, we're pulling and retrieving the files from our storage, and each one of those permits is getting digitized. Full scan, they are getting digitized. They are getting scanned in high quality. They are getting populated and brought into our database. We are extracting key documents from that to make it much more accessible to the permitting, but obviously to the overall staff. And then Khalid is coming in behind them with the second phase, the phase 2 effort, which is the data entry. So he's coming in behind and populating records and information within the database that is missing within those records. So it's sort of a collected effort, but again, all of that is bringing is going to bring the needed value that we will need to make the improvements that Preston and Steve are working on the larger effort for our database improvements to make those systems much more functional. And then obviously, as we look long term too, is obviously transparency with our partners. So sharing that information with our local stakeholders, or LMAs that are often wondering what permits do we have out there. We should be able to share, right? The intent is always to be able to share and have a viewer like the one that we currently have internal that would be visible to our partners with some of that information that they would be able to also view. And so that's also within the works and in the plan for operations. Okay. So within that effort...
Excuse me, just a quick, how do they prioritize which ones they digitize?
So we are going in chronological order. Yes. So we realized that that was going to be a challenge. So the only way that we could really be certain that we were capturing every single record is to go in sequence. And so we had to go in that sequence. However, as there are requests from specific engineers or other managers within the section or the branch that require those files to be needed more and more promptly, then we make those requests and we prioritize those, and those get processed first. But then the students come back and continue their sequence where they were working.
So when you say chronological, you're doing the oldest first or the youngest first?
Oldest.
Wow, I've seen those files. That's an incredibly difficult challenge that our students are taking on there. Wow.
I'd be happy to, I should have put a slide with some of the before and after. Actually, the background for this slide is one of those maps that was digitized as part of that effort. So one of the things that's missing in many of the current record that's in the permitting file is the plans. And the plans are critical for much of the evaluation that was done when the request came before the board. And so we are going through the effort of getting those plans scanned and digitized because they are providing that critical information that is necessary for the engineers to do that proper evaluation on that request.
I have to say I'm impressed they're starting with the oldest first because I spent time down there with those records, and I hope they have a mask on when they're working.
Well, likely they're not going anywhere, so the files are coming to us. So they're getting requested, they're getting sent to our office, and in our office we are doing the processing and then shipping them back. So we're eliminating some of the conditions that they might have encountered at the storage facility. But yes, so yes, President Paulson.
Yeah, can you just talk a little bit about your decision about because this is obviously a huge body of work, and can you give a little sense of like how long it will take to digitize everything? Because I just wonder if you could explain your thought process of going back to the oldest first and starting there.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And this is a perfect segue for the next part, but the thinking behind it is what we are often getting was many requests that were coming in for reapprovals or requests to repair something that was already permitted. And what was missing within those were pipes, facilities, irrigation facilities, other encroachments that we didn't have much information aside from just the permit, which in some cases was grainy, difficult to read. And so we recognize that those were some of the ones that were missing. So we began the effort of essentially saying the only way we could because the records are so random, we said we got to start with the oldest first in that sequence, and at some point, we should be able to get caught up. Currently, the students are working and they're scanning in the realm of the 4,500 permits, so they are up to 4,000 permits or so. So they're making some improvements. Again, they're students, they're fitting in this work during their school schedule. Summertime is usually where they and breaks is where they can make a little bit more progress. But even with all of that, we have completed over 30% of the records so far that have been updated. To the second question that Ms. Bossler asked was, what are we doing? How long is it going to take? Well, I've told them that they have enough work here to get them through college, for sure. But in addition to that, we're also looking, and I'm going to cover in the next slide here, this is probably a good segue for the next slide, is we are looking at essentially seeking a task order to get a vendor to facilitate and expedite some of those records. So we would be essentially taking a big bucket, roughly 15,000. That's what we're aiming for. Again, with the funding. The funding was going to be the critical path here, but using and maximizing the funding the best that we can, we are going to try to maximize and use and scan as many of those 15,000 permits into our file. So that should essentially speed up the process. There's still going to be some remnants and additional data entry that'll be necessary, but I think that should get us maybe within the next couple years, I think, in a much better situation. I hope to report to you by then that we'll be at the 95% a completion of the project. That would be my hope. Okay, so leading on to the operation improvement, so long term. So what are we looking for? So the enforcement program as it works, currently is great. We are trying to do much of that engagement with the landowners and try to resolve the issues. But one of the things that we've recognized is that the process itself isn't necessarily suited to allow for some of those issues to be resolved rather quickly. So what we're looking for is ways to streamline the enforcement process, to streamline and make it more efficient, but while also retaining the landowner's due process, right? So we also recognize that in enforcement action, we have to give the landowners their opportunity to make their case on the issues. So we are also looking to retain those, but improve efficiencies within the process. We are always looking for ways to expand capacity and to build capacity. I think a good example of that was the BCP that we had a couple years ago that expanded the deferred encroachment compliance section, which was a great addition that Zubair and his team are leading. But we're also the section is also continuously working with local maintaining agencies. They're our partners, and they are our eyes on the ground. So we do regular presentations at the quarterly meetings that are held by the Department of Water Resources. We present them on the issues that are before them. Again, transparency. We want to make sure they're aware of what the issues that we're taking. Whenever we're taking an enforcement action, we are making sure that they're receiving copies of the notices that are being issued. Oftentimes, we are engaging them beforehand because sometimes they do have that the more basic knowledge or maybe even some history on the issue before. And then we also offer ourselves to be available to present at any of their meetings with their community as well, right? We want to make ourselves accessible, and where the districts are able to engage the landowners and resolve issues without formally sending referrals to us, then we're always open to those possibilities of extending that and opening that communication, educating the public. Because I think that's inevitably the education part is one of those things that we end up doing in enforcement. We do it through enforcement, which is unfortunate. Ideally, we'd be doing education and outreach to the landowners, right, in difference. And I think that we're trying to do that through the different programs, improvements that the other group are working on. And like I said earlier, the vendor, we're looking to essentially contract with a vendor to try to expedite some of the permitting records. And I think lastly but not least, the most important one is staff retention, right? We want to make sure we keep our staff, we keep them happy, and we continue to provide support as they pursue their licenses, as they are pursuing other opportunities, providing them with cross-training opportunities to learn other things, to expand their knowledge, with always the goal, obviously, to provide them an opportunity to grow within the agency. Okay. And with that, I think in closing, I just want to thank the operations branch as a whole, the managers and all the staff that every day come in and show up to do their work day to day. They're dedicated, and without all their work, right, much of what we are reporting before you here, the managers, wouldn't be possible. So thanks to everybody, and thanks to the board for your continued support as well.
How gracious of you to thank us. We thank you. Wow. Ms. Galiso, Mr. Lamb, Mr. Shopwell, and all of you who work in those divisions. Remarkable work, and thank you so much for this. I just feel a tremendous burden to work harder to get you the resources that you need. We talk about that a lot. I actually don't know how to get past that wall of the Department of Finance, but somebody does.
We'll get there.
Yeah, okay.
Chair Dolan, mind if I'd like to second that, and I thought of a question also. Do you remember what permit number 1 was?
Oh, you put me on the spot. I believe the bucket of the first 20 permits were majority were reclaiming land to be built for levee construction. So the majority were just more the planning documents, building some of the framework and the facilities that we have today.
No, yeah, it must have been fascinating.
It was.
To understand its calligraphy. Yeah. Yeah. No, that's when the federal government said you can have this land if you reclaim it, and now we're trying to reclaim it back for floodplain and fish and habitat. So, yeah, fascinating. Okay. I just want to clap. You all want to give them some applause? Okay, thanks. All right, we've been meeting now for 2 hours. We got a choice. See what we'll do this. We could just take a very brief break, take a little drink, and then come back and quickly do it. We do have a closed session, or we could just press on.
I think press on to closed session.
All right. How many want to raise for just press on? I don't see any hands up. Okay, we'll just press on. Everybody's whispering at me, so we'll go. All right. Item 10, Department of Water Resources written report on their monthly activities. Anyone have a comment on that or a question? I don't see board. Over here, over there. Any hands up? Okay, we'll go on. Did someone put their hand up?
No.
I did say public. This public, this public, this public, and there was a no. Okay, thank you for saying that again. Staff activity reports. We don't need to comment on the operations branch, but we also have the executive staff administrative division. Did you send that? Because I don't think I saw it. Flood system improvement branch, natural resources management and planning division, executive officer delegated permit report. Thank you for putting that together. It shows that there is activity beyond what board needing to actually vote for something. Was that a yes? You have a comment, Member Countryman? You got it. So turn it on. Turn your mic on.
I know on the report, you attended the NASMA annual meeting in July.
Oh, I have that.
Was
right
there any discussion about properly funding the Core 408 review process or modifying the process to make it more timely?
There is always a lot of discussion about the 408 program on the national level, and NASMA as a group is advocating for increased funding for the 408 program. And we're also engaged with core leadership on how to make the program more effective within the resources they have. So yes, definitely a topic of conversation, both in open session and behind the scenes directly with core leadership.
Do you think we'll see any modifications to the program to make it more efficient?
The Corps is a large organization, and it moves slowly. But we are continuing to press on that, and also here at the district level, we're engaged in those conversations. Steve hinted at that, but we're also going to engage with the new commander to see whether we can gain any efficiencies with how they operate with us.
Maybe we could just put a goal on speed. You know how the Corps operates. Yeah, okay, okay. Okay. I did see what the executive officer submitted, and one of them was Central Valley Flood Education Tour. That was interesting that you called it education. I got to go too. I could pass this here. With this, put together, the whole organization of it was put together by basically our deputy executive officer and our executive officer, in this booklet from the from the California Central Valley Association is just so helpful. So it was a long day. It was really good. We had folks there from was it legislative analysts there or not?
Yes, so
Legislative analysts, Department of Finance, DWR, Flood Board. I got to go.
and agency as well, Natural Resources Agency.
Oh, yes,
Yeah.
natural resources. Sorry, Josh.
And a huge shout out to the association for their work and organizing it and putting the agenda together and all the work behind the scenes. They really did a lot of the heavy lifting. So Tom, Megan were instrumental in having a successful day. This is the third annual tour we've done, the second one in the Sacramento Basin last year, and we went to the San Joaquin area. Next year we'll go back to San Joaquin. But this is very helpful to educate finance and the analyst's office about the challenges we face as a system. You know, the budget is a long game. We're in tough times right now, but having that knowledge with the people who make the decisions is very useful.
Mr. Tom Engler is here, being very shy. I'm calling him a guy who really likes gravel roads. Thank you very much. He gave information at every spot and just answered questions like that. So I think it wouldn't have happened without yours and Megan's and Roger's and everyone else's effort. So thanks. Okay. Moving right along.
Can I just say something really quick? I just want
Of course.
to second all of the applause and support, and I just can't overemphasize how important these site visits are to these folks that sit in very consequential positions. I think that really, this is complex. Like building generational infrastructure, understanding the governance issues, who's in charge of what, how these projects actually get put together, all of that stuff is really important, and they have lots of issues on their plates, and so these site visits are really they go a long way, and we really appreciate all the time and effort that goes into supporting them.
We appreciate that they came and joined us as well. So that takes an effort. Busy people, and they did it. Yeah, nothing like being on site when you're describing what a project needs are, and the lack of funding to make things safer. Yeah. Great. Okay. Does anyone want to comment on any one of these reports? I think I got the board. Anyone over there? I think you're all staff. Anyone there? Do you want to say anything at all? Mr. Shy? Mr. Gravel Road?
Thank you, members of the board. Tom Engler, MBK Engineers, representing the Central Valley Flood Control Association. I was going to be shy today, but you've called me out, so no, I can't. I do want to just thank the board for including us in these tours. These tours, I think, we talk about it being the long game. It takes a long time for people to realize what we're trying to accomplish out there. And I think that the questions that are being asked on these tours get better and better every year. So I think we're actually making advancements. So I just wanted to say that. Couldn't have done it without our wonderful chauffeur. She's great. I purposely plan on driving down gravel roads so people know what we're dealing with out there, and it's good. So thank you.
Yeah. There's no way to effectively have funding entities understand the lower Elkhorn Basin setback levy without seeing it, or understand the bypass without understanding how big it is and essential to the system. You see the photo, and it doesn't seem as big as when you're standing there. So, great. Thank you, Mr. Engler. Board comments and committee updates. Okay. Shy board.
Actually, is this our last chance to talk? Yes. Right?
Yes, this is the last chance.
Well, so I just, because I
Vice
didn't get a
President
chance to.
Belines.
Thank you.
What's up?
I just want to say what a great meeting today was, from every presentation, from all of our folks, to see everything going on. It's just super impressive, so I'm just repeating what everyone did, but thank you. Also, just watching the flood, the reservoir, and seeing what work's been done there, and I was reminded, people are driving around, going to work, they're busy, they don't always see what's happening by people who are hardworking, who are building these projects, their tax dollars at work. You always hear people saying, what's happening? That's what's happening. Like, these are huge projects, and like you said, Joe, the public safety aspect alone is massive. But I just like the building and the cement and the stuff. It's incredible. So today was a great day. It was just a lot of fun. It was great to see everything. Totally appreciate what everyone's doing, and it makes us look good as a board. So thanks for doing that. I didn't think I was going to get a chance to do it otherwise, so I wanted to.
Yeah, no, thanks. We like trees too. Okay. I don't know what I'm doing. Okay, for this. Advisory Committee, August 26th. Primarily in person, but we always offer the online as well, so good for that. And the in person is at the Flood Board's offices down in the basement. Coordinating Committee is in September. Next board meeting is September 26th. We do not have a workshop in September because most of us will be at the Floodplain Management Association conference. And then board workshop, October 10th. As you say, location to be determined. I always say, here we are, another venue. But we'll find everything will have a place. Okay.
The October workshop will be a tour.
Oh, October is going to be a tour.
Yes.
Okay.
We're going to San Joaquin, so it's just to JAFCA projects.
Oh, great. Okay. Another early day. Okay. I think that takes care of everything up to now. We're going to be calling for a closed session. Is that right? Anything else that someone wants to say before I close out the public portion of the meeting? We're going to continue into closed session. Okay. It's going to be very brief for all of you who are curious. We're not going to, Mr. Dua can or cannot say what the purpose will be. We don't anticipate, and I'm certain there will be no action at this. But once you announce what it is, we're going to vacate the room for everybody except the board and key staff.
Thank you, President Dolan. Closed session will be held for anticipated litigation.
That's a big duh. Okay, so who, we need Mr. Leaf, you, and that's it?
Board members,
Is that
yes.
right? And board members. Okay. Thank you all. The public session of the meeting has ended, but the meeting continues in closed session. Very brief closed session. There was nothing to report. No action was taken. The board meeting is adjourned.